You're listening to Parasearch Radio, news, views and reviews from the world of the paranormal from across the UK and beyond. Find us on Facebook, Twitter and the World Wide Web. Parasearch UK Radio. Parasearch Radio, broadcasting to the UK and beyond.
The views and opinions expressed by presenters and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of Parasearch Radio or its affiliates and sponsors. Listener discretion is advised. Welcome to Haunted Histories with your host Penny G. Morgan, right here on Parasearch Radio.
Hello everybody, and how are we tonight? I hope we're all well. I'm not. I've got man flu. I feel really rough actually, to be honest. I've been mainlining Lemsip and can't stop drinking to keep my throat going. So if I start sneezing or coughing or you hear my lovely guest saying bless you and you don't know why he's saying bless you, that'll be me sneezing in the background. And yes, I get this stinking cold on the one time I decide to go completely 100% live for the whole show. But, you know, that's how it rolls. That's how it rolls. So what's everyone up to? Have you all gone and liked the YouTube page? Yeah? You subscribed to it? Did you listen to last week's show, Haunted History show that I did with Chris Smith from the Tennessee Wraith Chasers? If you didn't, go and check it out. You missed out. It's a good show. Very enjoyable person to speak to, as are all my guests. I love my guests. I love all my children equally. I do. They're all wonderful. So what have I been up to? Well, I did the Jack the Ripper tour this weekend, just gone, with Richard Jones's Jack the Ripper tour company. And I must say, it was bloody excellent. The guide was a guy by the name of John Bennett. And even for someone like me who's got a relatively good knowledge of history, I learnt stuff. I learnt quite a lot. And it was the fastest 2 hours I think I've ever spent. So if you're looking for something to do in London, go and check it out, because honestly, it was fascinating. And I'd do it again. I'd quite happily do it again, because the combination of both the history side and kind of, I suppose you could say, the gruesome side that he went through was really fascinating. In fact, I'm going to tell you one of the facts, because I found this fact quite shocking. Back in Victorian England, in the East End, there was something in the region of, I think it was 9 times the amount of prostitutes as there is now. Now you might say, that's nothing unusual, there was no welfare system, etc. Nope, fine. Women would charge 4p for their services, which is the equivalent to about £2 now. Now that alone is quite shocking, but there was a reason that they charged 4p. And that reason was because a bed in a doss house cost 4p. So they would charge 4p so they could get a bed for the night. I found that quite amazing, if I'm completely honest. Hi, Kaz. Yeah, I found that quite amazing, that they charged enough so they could get a bed in a doss house, because they probably wouldn't make much more than that. But anyway, that aside, I can definitely recommend it. If you're ever in London and you want to do something that's a bit different, do one of the Jack the Ripper tours, because it really was absolutely excellent. Anyway, tonight's show, I'm joined by someone that I've been nattering to on Facebook for quite a long time. He works with, and don't hold this against him, please don't hold this against him, he works with Lee Roberts, you know, Lee Roberts of The Lee Roberts Show, Lee Roberts who hates history. I'm waiting for Lee to appear in the chat room, actually, and give me some grief about saying that. But, yeah, Mr. Lee Roberts and Mr. Pete Cox on the hauntings. It is the one, the only, Mr. Ryan Griffiths. Ryan, are you there?
Hello.
Hello.
I am indeed.
Hello. Did you like my little introduction?
I thought it was absolutely fantastic. And again, Lee's ego always gets in there somewhere.
God, I do call him the media whore for a reason.
Absolutely, but do you know what? He has a competitor now.
Oh, you're coming up his. I was going to sound wrong. I was going to say you're coming up his rear, but that sounds really wrong.
That's a whole different show. But I tell you, it's funny because when we did our profile picture on Facebook, if any of your listeners have seen it, it's got me at the bottom in the middle. And do you remember? I'm sure it was yourself that put a comment on about how did I end up there?
Yeah, it was me.
I loved it. I loved it.
Yeah, the fact Lee let somebody else in front of the camera.
Yeah,
I was quite shocked.
I was shocked myself. I was shocked I could last that long in front of the camera before he pushed me out of the way. But did you also notice when he pushed me in the water the other day?
Yes, I saw. Well, you sent me that link, didn't you? You sent me the link of you being pushed in the water. Yeah.
Yeah, well.
Yeah, that was him getting his own back. He obviously he's got a long memory. There's our Roberts.
Absolutely, he's a terrible man, isn't he?
He's awful. I'm really not looking forward to meeting you all in November. I really am not at the village. No,
I dread us all three of us getting together every other weekend when we do a live investigation, but that's the way it is.
He's just going to put his arm in front of my face whenever the camera's anywhere near me, isn't he?
Yeah, and or he'll divert the attention and say, and anyway, in other news...
Bless him, we love him, really.
He's getting attention now because we're speaking about him.
I know. I'm being nice because he's letting me come to investigate the village with you guys. I'm giving him his 5 seconds of fame.
And he is getting old, I mean...
Watch
he's
it.
a granddad.
Watch it, Griffiths. He's younger than me.
Yeah, but you see, he's a granddad now, isn't he?
True.
But I'm digging a hole for myself here, pardon the pun, because I have to work with him.
You do, and he did put down he was going to listen to this.
Oh God! Well, I must give it. Here's what he's paid me to say. If you would like to find out what Lee Roberts is doing in the future, please go to his page, which is official Lee Roberts on Facebook. Now, Lee, if you're listening, I want my tenner.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, keep asking. Anyway, It's lovely. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, Ryan. We're 100% live. We probably are both in trouble, Kaz. Yeah, you're right.
Yes.
Yeah, well, Lee has already got the challenge out. He wants me to get scared on an investigation. He wants me to do a Zach Bagans scream.
Oh, God. What, you can scream louder than me?
You what, sorry?
I said you can scream louder than me. If you've seen me scream on the lives.
I've heard you, yeah.
Well, it was at a village, was it last weekend, the weekend before? I forget now. My head's all over the place. It's been such a busy day, as I was saying to you.
Yeah.
But I absolutely was petrified because even being a medium and working with spirit and things, I looked round the corner and I seen that the face of a lady looking straight at me. I turned and I run the other way, I was terrified.
Yeah. Well, Kaz has just put, it's nice to hear a Scottish accent.
Oh, well, thank you, Kaz. I appreciate it. That's nice. Normally people go, what?
Oh, you know I love a Scottish accent. I love an accent. I love a Scottish accent.
It's different, isn't it?
Yeah.
I haven't actually, to be fair. I know there is a lot of Scottish paranormal investigators and things, but you don't. From my view of looking on Facebook, I haven't seen many. I won't say that I haven't seen none, but I haven't seen many.
Is it because the spirits can't understand you?
Probably.
Because you're from like the top of Scotland, aren't you, right?
Yeah, I'm originally from the Shetland Isles.
Wow.
I was actually born in Aberdeen, but that's purely because they didn't do C-sections on the island. So I got airlifted, or my mum got airlifted to Aberdeen, which is where I was officially born.
Right.
But I was registered as a Shetlander, and we come from, like, as I was saying, we come from Viking heritage. So hence the Viking when I do my boxing.
Yeah, cool. So what age were you when you discovered you had mediumistic abilities?
Now that I'm more worldly wise, or a little bit worldly wiser, I would say had to have been from around about 4 or 5 years old. There was many things happening and many things I was experiencing, but the very first mediumistic message or connection with spirit that I had was when I was living with my granddad in Shetland. I'm terrified of dark even to this day, but
Right.
I always slept with the landing light on and the bedroom door open. And my bedroom was like an L shape, and at the end of the L, that was where my bedroom door was, and my bed was sort of running along the side, and I couldn't see the bedroom door, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
But I woke up one night, I have no idea what time it was. I woke up and I had this feeling that, it was a cliche feeling that somebody else was there, but I couldn't see anything.
Yeah.
And so, for some reason, I felt like I needed to look at the bedroom door. So I looked, and there was this little girl. She was standing there. She was about 4 years old. Very, very pretty. She reminded me, and I often say whenever I talk about this, I often say she looked like the child out of Interview with the Vampire, if you've ever seen it.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Frilly hair, golden locks, all that sort of stuff. Anyway, the next morning, I mentioned it to my grandfather, and he comes from Tooting in London. So he was very Victorian mindset. So he didn't want to talk. He didn't want to talk about anything like that.
Yeah.
And he closed down completely. So fast forward about 10 years roughly. Fast forward, but then I was in Glasgow with my grandmother, speaking away to her about spooky stories as we often did.
Uh-huh.
And I mentioned this story, and she said, "Can you describe the girl?" So I did. I said, shiny shoes, little frilly socks. She was in a nice, beautiful frock. It was like pearly colour, not quite white. It was like an offset white, and she had this golden locked hair. So she started crying. I thought, "Oh my God, what have I done?"
Yeah.
A few minutes after that, she got up. She left the room, and I thought, "Oh my God, what if I was really upset. I thought I'd really said something I shouldn't have."
Uh-huh.
She come back about 10 minutes later with 2 books, and they looked like photo albums, and she sat down, she opened the first one, and she's looking through it, and she showed me this picture, and she said, "Is this her?" I said, "Well, yes." I said, "It looks like her." I said, "But she's different hair, different clothes." So she's still crying, remember? So she's looking through the second one, and she says, "Is this her?" And she showed me her, and it was the absolute perfect picture of what I described.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, she's still crying. I said, "Well, what is..." She said, "That is your Auntie Margaret. She was my firstborn child. She died at the age of 4, and she died of, I'm sure, if memory serves me correctly, it was pneumonia or something of that nature." And how I had described her and the photo that she showed me was how they dressed her in the coffin.
Wow. So,
and I know it sounds bizarre and to some people very, very morbid, but that's what they did back then. Especially in East London, they used to take pictures of I presume not everyone did, but some people would take pictures of the dead, which is what the old Victorians did as well, didn't they?
Well, it was because it was so expensive to take photos, and if a child moved, that was the photo ruined. So if they're dead, you hope they're not going to move. So it's a way of remembering, and because child mortality was so high as well, it was a way of remembering your deceased. Wow. Kaz has asked a question. She said, have you ever found yourself in a situation that you were truly uncomfortable or scared of and walked out on a professional basis?
So that would be with my investigating or what have you?
Yeah, I presume so, yeah.
Yes, I would say in the house, the first house that I lived in Darlington, it was on a street called Cartmel Terrace. And I was absolutely terrified. I even just talking about now, I know you can't see, but I have goosebumps just talking about the place. It was just horrific.
Yeah.
People would disbelieve some of the things that I could say about that and give you examples. Genuinely, that place was just not right.
We're losing you a bit there, Ryan. Is your signal dropping out?
Yeah. Yeah, it came up saying poor connection, but it seems okay now. I can hear
it's better now. Yeah, I can hear you now. Yeah. So this house gave you goosebumps?
Yeah, well, more than that, I was attacked in that house. It affected my daughter, made her seriously ill.
Right.
many, many things. And as I say, a lot of people will argue that fact, and rightfully so. They have the right to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But there was phenomena happening there that they could easily make a movie on. And that's not, I mean, it's not like I'm trying to promote the place because I don't even live there anymore. But, you know, that was the case. It was frightening.
And that made you move?
And yes, absolutely. We were out of there. You know, it got to the stage where I was getting choked. The door flew off the hinges. And I was choked in front of people. I had witnesses to see that. It was crazy. It was even now I'm struggling to speak about it.
Yeah. So working, excuse me, working as a medium and doing readings for people. Have any of those ever, what the spirit is telling you? Has any of those ever made you go, whoa? I can't tell people this.
Yes, absolutely. Because the way that not on a frightening level, but it's just in detail. Sometimes, if you could imagine someone, I know it sounds very frightening, but if you could imagine someone covering your mouth and not allowing you to speak, and then you're trying to get some information over to someone, and it's, you know, really frustrating you, and then you suddenly get the opportunity where you can speak, you want to blurt out as much as you can.
Yeah.
Because you know that you've got a limited amount of time before your mouth is opened again, if that makes sense. And I remember a character now, it's going to be no different.
Losing you again, Ryan.
Because you'll understand. Oh,
I'm losing you again.
Hear me now?
Yep. I can think. Yep.
I'm just saying, you know, what the character you are now will be different when you pass. You'll just be a little bit more worldly wise because you'll understand how the spirit world works.
Yeah.
So, when you come through to speak, if you're full of beans in life, if you're really cheeky, if you swear a lot, if, you know, all these sort of things, if you're one of these people that can't keep quiet like myself, then then you'll be like that when you come through to mediums. It's up to the medium and their guides to be professional enough to not so much mask it, but dumb it down respectfully, if that makes sense.
Right.
So yes.
So you mean when I'm dropping F-bombs all over the place, trying to communicate with the medium after I've gone, the medium might not drop them for me.
They shouldn't, and they wouldn't. I would like to hope.
Okay.
Because it's just a professional courtesy, isn't it? You got to remember your P's and Q's kind of thing.
Yeah.
So you would be swearing away to me saying, "Oh, tell that effing person, oh, just," you know. But they're not being nasty. They're just being jovial. The person that they were in life.
Yeah.
So you just put it across in a more professional way, but it does make you uncomfortable from time to time.
Right.
You know.
Well, I've just been joined by Bear Medicine Walker, because she heard your voice on her phone. So she's joined in and says hello. Hi, Bear. Thanks for listening.
Bear is a lovely, lovely lady.
Isn't she just? Well, I know Kaz and Kerry did her radio podcast today, this afternoon. In fact, I'm doing it. She's interviewing me in October. So we're getting around as well. We're doing our best.
I was going to return the rude comment and say you get about a bit.
I do. Well, I am from Essex, dude. So you know.
Oh, well, that's enough said.
I mean, that was one of the funny things about interviewing Chris from Tennessee Wraith Chasers last week. I was trying to explain the Essex girl theory to him, and trying to explain that without being too rude. I don't know if I got it across.
Not easy.
Yeah. Love you too.
The connection's very, very dodgy.
Say what? Sorry. Hello?
I'm just saying the connections is going a little bit. It comes up saying poor signal and then comes fine again.
Yeah. Well, what I'll do then is if I hear you sort of breaking up, I'll start talking until you know you've got your connection back, and we'll do it. We'll do it that way. It's obviously because you're up north, you know. That's what it is. It's because you're up north. No? Oh,
it is. Well, northish.
Northish. Well, you're north of me compared to me, so not as north as you're from.
Yeah.
Because that's about as north as you can get.
Not that north. That's just crazy north.
So the reason you're on the show isn't for us to tease your colleague Lee. It isn't for us to explain what the Essex Girl phenomena is, or insinuate that we all get about a bit. It's to talk about somewhere that's on the Scottish borders, and it's a very interesting part of the world. Bear's just said that spirit is messing with us. That's what it is. It probably is, actually. I've had that happen before. I have had that happen before.
I'm aware of spirit around, as we were sort of briefly talking about before we went live. So it may well be that.
Yeah, no, I've had that happen before, that connections have just been cut off and all the settings just change when I've gone back to log back in and all that kind of thing. So it wouldn't surprise me, Bear. It wouldn't surprise me. But Jedburgh Castle. Now I call it a castle, but officially it's now a jail, or was.
Stroke museum, yeah.
A jail. Bear's just said she loves to mess with you all the time.
She does. But she keeps me on my toes.
She's a cheeky one. She is a cheeky one, that Bear.
Yes, indeed.
It's like, I tell you what, I do love it though. All these different people from all over the world, and we've all bonded, and we're all sort of connecting, and I think it's brilliant. That's
how it should be.
It is. I agree. I like it. I like that side of things. So, anyway, Jedburgh. Now, Jedburgh Castle, just as a quick sort of overview, was actually known as Jethurt Castle.
Yes.
Originally, yep. It was the site of an awful lot of battles. It was one of the strongholds that was handed, over to the English after the Treaty of Falaise to release William the Lion from captivity. But then it was recovered by the Scots, and then it was fought over again, and then it was recovered because being a border town. How far into the sort of Scotland is it?
It's probably about not even 10-15 minutes from the actual border.
Right.
Busy traffic, half an hour.
Yeah, because it's got a Teesside postcode, hasn't it?
Yeah. It is literally on the border, pretty much. It's a stone's throw, basically.
Yeah.
It's just traffic that makes the time up,
Yeah. So it was one of those border towns that was fought over a lot, a bit like a lot of the ones in Northumberland and everything else. It was constant battles. One of the interesting things that I found when I was researching it is there's meant to be an apparition, a harbinger of doom, that's meant to loiter there. That's actually warned a few people.
Yes.
Of impending death.
It's like I was saying to you about a project that I'm working on, or in the process of working on with Lee and Pete. There is connections to things that have happened since, sightings that have been seen of said spirit. Are they connected? Who knows?
Yeah. Well, apparently this apparition warned Alexander III, who was married at the castle in 1285, that he was going to die, and it came true quite shortly after when him and his horse fell off a cliff. So it's one of those things, and superstition is a very powerful thing.
Yeah. A lot of people do get hung up on it, don't they? The superstition things.
Can do. Yeah. They can do. But anyway, so 1409, the castle was basically the powers that be in Scotland raised it to the ground so that it couldn't be fought over again. Yeah. And between then and 1823, it was used as various things, but one of the things it was used as was the site of the gallows.
Yes.
For Jedburgh. So, not a particularly... So it must have an awful lot of painful energies going on there.
Yeah, I mean, on my when I very first arrived at Jedburgh in the car park, and it's only a very small car park that's at the side. Yeah. I remember parking the car there, and stepped outside to have a cigarette, and you could just feel it. Being mediumistic and things, that's the first thing. I'm preparing myself before I left my house to be ready to connect with spirit. So as soon as I get there, the first thing I was aware of was just this overwhelming energy that's been built up for all those years. And people talk about the stone tape theory with the energy in the walls and things. And I believe in that too. And all that energy was just there, and it's just unbelievable. Even non-mediumistic people that have been with me to that location have said, whoa, what an energy that comes off that place is unreal.
Yeah. The fact that there'd been all that fighting there, sort of from when it was first built in the 1100s to then being the site of a gallows. How close to the main castle is the abbey?
The abbey is. I'm trying to think, because I've only been there whenever it's been dark. But I know that the little road that runs up the side of the jail itself. You turn left at the top of or just about the top of the hill into the car park, and there's a little track road that goes immediately into a huge graveyard. And I'm only going upon an assumption here. I'm assuming that the abbey must be at the far end of the graveyard. Right. It would make sense.
Because I know during the sort of the Reformation period, they ransacked the abbey for stone but almost used it as a quasi-quarry. Now, Bear has just stolen my thunder a bit in my notes here, because she's put in the chat room, wasn't Mary Queen of Scots' house in Jedburgh as well? Yes, Jedburgh is associated with Mary Queen of Scots. In fact, she nearly died there after she had heard that her paramour, her lover, was seriously ill. She did a 40-mile horse ride to see him, and by the time she got back to her property in Jedburgh, I don't know whether she had pneumonia or something, but she was very, very ill, and so she did nearly die in Jedburgh as well. So yes, she did have That's all right, Bear. Don't worry. she's just said sorry. That's all right. I'm glad you're interested. But yes, Mary Queen of Scots has got, and there is a house. Her property is there, and people can visit it.
Yes, that's
I
right.
believe in Jedburgh.
And I think due to the location of where actually Jedburgh sits, it is bound to have such a mismatched, if that's the right way to put it, a mismatched amount of history there. Yeah. And a lot of linkages to England, to Scotland. I mean, it's just an unbelievable place. I get excited just talking about it. I love it.
Well, funny enough, there's very little information on it online. Mm-hmm. Very little information. I mean, compared to some of the places that I've researched for this show, it was actually, quite hard to really get in.
Well, talking about that, it's as we were saying, with Jedburgh and other venues, it's not something that I do. I never look into the history of any location, but what I do know about Jedburgh is only very little snippets. Do you know what I mean? Even when you go to Jedburgh itself, although there's lots of artefacts in the museum, pardon me, and there's lots of different things going on, there isn't a great deal of information. No. Albeit the obvious, there isn't a great deal of information that they put there, if that makes sense. Mm. Which is strange, which is very strange.
Yeah. Well, Bear said she always loves history. And Ryan, have you ever been there? I presume she means Mary's Queen of Scots' house as opposed to Jedburgh, because we're going to talk about your investigations and experiences of Jedburgh Jail. But how much exploring have you done of Jedburgh as an area?
To be honest, I haven't, because where I've lived, or where I have lived in different places, I haven't been able to visit the place easily because it's usually like an hour or two away from wherever I've been.
Right.
So quite often it's like any investigation, as I'm sure many listeners and yourself will know, you arrive an hour or two before, or whatever the case may be. You get on with it, and you might shoot off straight away after, or you might hang around half an hour or so and go home. Yeah. So, briefly, I've not had much experience out with the actual castle jail itself. Right. So the house, I've never been to the house. I've never been there, but I would love to, and I will.
I feel a road trip coming on, Ryan.
Yes, I feel that is certainly on the boil. Absolutely.
I think so. So, we'll fast forward to 1823 and the opening of the actual jail.
Yes.
At Jedburgh. Now, this jail was what they call a Howard Reform Prison. John Howard was a very famous... Hi, Michael. Was a very famous prison reformist from the 1700s who felt that prisons needed to be more towards rehabilitation as opposed to just pure punishment. But his theories on how a prison should work should be that prisoners should be in solitary confinement, so they should hard labour, and they should receive stringent religious instruction, and that was the way to rehabilitate them. I can kind of see where he's going with that, but and the hard labour thing was a very well, he wasn't Victorian, he was pre-Victorian, but it was a very Victorian way of looking at it, that, you know, the idle hands and all that type of thing.
It was the mindset to deal with criminals and such like. That was the mindset of how they should be treated.
Yeah.
I just have to quickly say, just slightly, Michael, who's on, I believe, is a close friend of mine, Michael, and he urged me to give him a little shout out, so I'm just going to say hello, Michael.
You're fine. You're fine. I don't mind. Yeah.
Sorry.
It's so rare for me to do a fully live show. It's quite a novelty for me to be able to answer people as they're saying stuff in the chat room.
It's fun.
So if you, I'll say hi to him again then as the presenter. Hi, Michael.
He'll love that.
So this was a Howard Reform Prison. Now, this was built sort of 50, 60 years after John Howard had actually died. He actually died contracting an illness from visiting a foreign prison when he was doing all his prison reforms. And it was designed and built by an architect called Archibald Elliott. It is the only remaining Howard Reform Prison still in Scotland. Interestingly enough, Bodmin Jail, to the other side of the country, in Cornwall, that was a Howard Reform Prison as well, based on Howard's So he got around. His theories did get around a lot, and he did have the right idea in that he wanted it to be about rehabilitation as opposed to punishment. The other interesting thing was that up until the 1800s, prisons didn't really hold people as a punishment. You tended to either be hung almost straight away or sent to Australia or wherever.
Well, what's interesting is what you're saying there in regards to reform and labour and hangings and things. That the jail is very interestingly built. I mean, I don't know what pictures or videos or anything like that you've seen on the location, but the way that it's set out is very close. It's a very it looks big. It looks big on the picture, but a lot of that is made up of wall space.
Yeah.
You know, the actual inside the cells and things are absolutely tiny.
Yeah.
The corridors that lead in between the cells are tiny. The staircases that leads up to the top floor of the cell blocks, they are no more than the staircase is no more than a foot wide. Yeah, I have to go sideways, and I'm not that fat, but I have to go sideways to go up. The doorways are narrow, and the actual cell blocks themselves, it's almost like the main house, if you want to call it a house, the main house of the building is in the centre, and you've got the cell blocks going off like spokes on a wheel. You know, It's a very strange way that it's been built. And in regards to reform and things like that with the prisoners, it was actually from the experience that I've had with Spirit and talking with Ellie Lewis, who I'll mention a bit more about him as we go on. The prisoners were cramped into these tiny cells. There was 40 people all in this tiny little room, if you could think of it like that, you know.
Yeah.
And there was the conditions was appalling, absolutely appalling.
So what? I mean, you've sort of segued into it. What sort of experiences with Spirit telling you what it was like in there, how they felt? What sort of experiences have you had? I remember my first walkthrough that I did, and I was just
while everything was getting set up for a live that I was doing at the time, it wasn't with the Hauntings, it was with my original group, the Spirit Finders UK, when I was with them.
Uh-huh.
And I was going for a walk round, and I was just seeing what I could pick up on, and I was in the top cell block, and I just randomly walked in any old cell, not because Spirit pushed me in or anything. I just sort of walked in, and I immediately felt the door closed. It didn't physically close, but it's hard to explain, but through connecting with Spirit, I could see the door slamming shut, and the whole room was just chock-a-block with people sitting nearly naked in the clothing that they were wearing. It was all in tatters and falling apart. There was feces all over the place. And I remember this young lad coming forward and just connecting with me to say hello. And the more I linked with him, the more he made me aware of the different things that they had to go through and the conditions and treatment that they had there. Uh-huh. And it's a far cry from what I've heard people speak about, what's been publicised about the place, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I think it falls into the category of you never know what goes on behind closed doors. Kind of thing.
Definitely not. Definitely. So what this young lad was conveying to you, what shocked you the most?
I think what shocked me the most is the fact that they were left in such a small space, which, if I remember rightly, was about 8 foot by about 10 foot. Uh-huh. And there was about 40 people, was the number that he gave me when I asked how many. I remember him saying 40, and it was just the conditions. There was no air. There was no... The only air condition that they had in those rooms, they had no windows. All the windows are all like shut and boarded out, if that makes sense. It's hard to explain. But out in the hallway that ran in between the cells, there was like grates in the floor, like holes in the floor. Yeah. So it's like, if you imagine like a storm drain, it's a little bit like that. There's 3 or 4 of them along the hallway, and it lets the air up through the bottom floor up into the top floor. So you can imagine those amount of people, the heat, the urine, the feces. I know it's disgusting, but it was the conditions. Yeah. If you can imagine all that and no air really coming through, it was appalling.
Rancid.
Yeah, that for me is what shocked me the most about what he was conveying to me. I thought, wow, I couldn't imagine 40 people other than what he was showing me being in that tiny little room.
That does go against the stuff that I've discovered. Yes. Yeah. Well,
you see, it's Elliot Lewis, the name I mentioned before. He's like the caretaker of. He's certainly one of the caretakers of Jedburgh, and you'll meet him very often. I assume he's still doing it. Last I spoke to him, which was last year, he was still there. And he will often tell you all about like the history and things like that. I know I used to send my guests on the public hunts in to speak to him and things like that. And he will tell you the same thing. He said, yeah, the conditions were absolutely appalling.
Yeah. Oh, I don't doubt that, because even now there's reforms still going on in the 21st century.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
I know that some of the acts that were passed were meant to have made it a bit better for prisoners, because before the Howard reforms really started, prisons weren't run on they were run on an independent system, and jailers weren't paid a wage. They were paid whatever they could get off the prisoners. So it would cost something in the 1700s. It would cost a prisoner something like 2 shillings and 6pence to actually have their own bedding. Yeah. If all they could do was share, they had to pay 1 shilling and 3pence or something. So things like that, which we would look at now and go, what? Because the jailers didn't get a salary. Whatever they earned, they had to, if you like,
you see,
steal off the prisoners.
Well, I mean, and that would have happened constantly, no doubt. But the thing is, as well, is it's when there's certain stipulations that must be followed with different jails and things, that all gets put in place. But how often, especially back then, would people have visited the jail and said, this is how it should be run, I want to see it run like that? Wouldn't have happened. They would have just been told, they would have been given an order of how they need to follow protocol, and then they would have just left it at that and done their own thing.
Yeah. That's very
true. So
true.
it's no surprise.
It's very true. I couldn't actually find the figures for how many people were incarcerated at Jedburgh, because it only ran as a prison for sort of 63 years. But I did find figures for the whole of Scotland that between 1800 and 1868, 273 people were hanged in Scotland as a whole. 259 of them were male, 14 of them were women, and predominantly they were hung for either murder or housebreaking. Those were the two top things. Now, you guys up in Scotland also had a couple of crimes which we never even had here in the UK. You had something, and you might have to pronounce this for Stouthreef, which was a robbery on a dwelling house.
Yes,
Stouthreef. And
it's
Hamesucken. Hamesucken, which was invasion of a dwelling house.
It's,
and those were also ones that were punishable by death.
But you see, that's a tricky one. My immediate thoughts were how many people you invited to your house and suddenly you wanted rid of them. You just make that complaint that they've invaded your house.
Yeah. Well, there you go.
That sounds ludicrous, but back
you've got a party that won't stop, so you decide to tell all your friends to go home.
Yeah.
By saying, I'm going to get you hung, I'm going to get you incarcerated at Jedburgh if you don't leave.
But the thing is those are official statistics, but how many unofficial, but you're going into a whole new ballpark with that one, because that's probably all over the place. Probably. Yeah. But massive on its history and its energy, and wow.
Yeah.
A must for a paranormal investigator. And rightfully so, I suppose I should promote it slightly, is to say it is actually reasonably priced in comparison to some other venues.
Mm-hmm.
I know venues, as I'm sure you do, that go into the thousands, that go into the top hundreds and stuff like that. Jedburgh, you can get as little as £250. I mean, it's not bad.
Wow.
And I think if memory serves me correctly, it might have altered slightly, so don't quote me 100% on those prices. It might have changed because it's been over a year since I was there last. But I certainly know that you'd be able to add the extra £50 on to 300, and you can stay through to a little bit later in the morning,
Yeah.
Add a couple extra hours if you like.
Right, this is going to make you laugh. I have got the spider the size of a small tarantula on my wall.
No, don't tell me.
It's huge. I have just texted my husband to come and get it. Because obviously I'm live, so I can't stop and catch it.
God. Anyone who knows me that's listening knows I am terrified of spiders.
Well, you see, I'm not terrified, but I just don't particularly want it running near me whilst I'm talking, because...
you might scream.
I might squeal, yeah. But and he's just come out with a glass. Mate, I don't think that glass is going to be big enough. If it jumps, you might hear a scream.
I can hear the fear in your voice.
Sorry?
I can hear the fear in your voice. He was going, mate,
it's big. Honestly, it's a big one. Even he raised his eyebrows as he came and saw it.
Oh, brilliant.
They don't scare me, but I just wouldn't particularly want it running around me. I don't mind it if it stayed, but I think it was out for the night. It wanted a pint or something, the way it was walking around. Anyway, back to the...
Yes.
Chet is telling me to weave my life. Okay. It was a very pretty looking spider. It's just, and I'm trying to concentrate on a show. I don't really want to have to deal with it. Thank you, husband. Right.
Only point.
He's back off upstairs now to watch his video, whatever he's doing while I'm doing this. So, one of the things I also found, and Bez just told me that my web needs tending, or my soul's energy. Very true, probably. It's very true. You can explain more to me about that off air, Bear. That what I did find was quite a few reports of people who were executed at Jedburgh and then were discovered to be innocent subsequently.
Yes.
Now, I'm not going to tell you any names. Did you pick up on any of those when you were there?
I didn't pick up on any names per se. I did pick up on names on the particular nights. Remembering them now is near impossible. I couldn't remember any messages I give to anyone. I never remember. And it's the same when I link the spirit on a paranormal location. I quite often forget the next day. So to remember those names, I couldn't. But there's only one name that sticks in my mind. Mm-hmm. And there was one night. I mean, it's like any location you go to. You could have quiet nights. Mm. So the small group of people that we took with us, we went into cell 18 in the men's block, and I thoroughly recommend anyone looking for extreme activity, I would go to cell 18 in the men's block. And that is if you're actually allowed to go into it. Mm. I got special permission because I'm friends with Elliot, who, as I say, is one of the caretakers. So, and we've been many times. So, if he still isn't allowed, ask if you can experience it. Anyway, we went in there. Nothing was happening very much that night, and I said, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll grab a seat from the waiting area. I'll sit in the cell. You guys can have a go at the Ouija board, and I'll just try and use myself like a battery to try and encourage spirit. I don't believe you can pull spirit to come forward, but I was trying to encourage them to come forward.
Yeah.
So I sat there. And it's actually recorded on YouTube somewhere. I'll have to dig it out for you, Penny.
Yeah, it'd be wonderful. Thanks, Ryan.
But I was sitting on the chair, and unbeknown to me, I'd gone into a deep trance state. No, I'm not a trance medium, so I'm not going to, for 1 minute, say that I was performing trance, if that's the way to put it. But it happened.
Yeah.
And my feet were pointing forward like they would be if you were sat in a chair, and suddenly the guys in the room started hearing a scraping noise, so they pointed the camera towards where they thought the sound was coming from, my feet, and you could see my feet starting to almost do a 180, and start to face the other way.
Right.
And that sort of freaked a lot of people out, as you can imagine. So they're still using the Ouija board, which is just slightly in front of me. And the lady sitting next to me got the impression that spirit was with me. So they said, "What is your name?" And then it freaks me out just looking back on it. But you can hear how Scottish I am now. But in the video, I was speaking a very, very old type English accent, and it was perfect. Right. It was. I mean, by all means, I can do things like "jolly good show, old chap," But yeah, I was waiting for the giggle. But that's the height of it, or up the apples and pears, mate. But I can't put the old English. I can't do that sort of thing. But anyway, you can tell by watching it, it's not my voice. Yeah. That's all I can say. You need to see it, but. Perhaps I'll post it on Facebook so the listeners can see it too.
Definitely.
So you hear my voice and the spirit voice come through, and I say, "My name is Warren."
Right.
Now I say the name, then I spell the name, but the weird thing is, now bearing in mind, I'm not touching the Ouija board, nor anyone who is touching the Ouija board is not part of the team. It's members of the public and people who don't know me. These are people that are paid to come on the night and they're having a go. And at the same time that I said W when they were asking me to spell the name, it went to W. And this was also recorded. So you can hear me say the name and you can see it spell it on the Ouija board at exactly the same time. Excuse me. So I found that a bit weird, and that was the only one name that I can remember was Warren. I did come with a surname, but I forget what it was now.
See, that could have been predating the jail.
Well, that's what someone said that to me afterwards. That I'm sure, if our memory serves me correctly, one of the guests, I'm almost certain, during the break, got on Google and was trying to figure this out, and I'm sure they did tell me that there was a Warren or something like that. I can't remember now. But the interesting thing is, when that finished and I confirmed the name, I then began to attack the man who had the camera. And that man was an amateur boxer and 6'3" and built like a tank. And in front of 12 or so guests, I was throwing him around the the cell like an empty tracksuit, you know.
Right.
And then I suddenly collapse, and he drags me out the cell, and it was crazy, absolutely crazy, and I've never ever had an experience like that since.
So what's cell 18? Why is cell 18 restricted?
Because what I was told previously to cell 18, and hence why we went into cell 18, was that a lot of activity, a lot of bad energy has been recorded there, like through video, through EVPs, different things and experiences that investigators have had who have gone to investigate Jedburgh. So we thought, well, as nothing was happening, we'll go to cell 18. Right. And I can assure you, I've been there many times since, and every single time going into cell 18, I've seen the door slammed shut in front of guests. It's ripped equipment off, like any equipment we've left in there with a lock-off camera facing on it. It's ripped it off the walls. Like we had a mic that was taped to the walls,
right?
And it got ripped off the wall in front of the camera, and nobody was even in the building because we'd all gone on a break. You see, like a cigarette break or what have you, and. Upon reviewing we went back up after a continued investigation, and there was this mic and things all ripped up on the floor. The cable was broken, as if it had been like cut, and things that was all sitting on the floor. And again, that's documented on YouTube, so I'll have to get the footage of it so you can see it, and you can hear some sort of scuffling noise on the mic, and then you just see it fly across the room, but you can't see the condition of it. Because obviously the lock-off camera's at a certain angle.
Right.
But you see us come back. Now, we put CCTV in... am I waffling too quick?
No.
I'm just getting caught up in the memory of it.
No, that's fine. That's what you're here for, dude.
We had... we put cameras all over that building. That's the thing that I forgot to say. We put cameras everywhere. And they were all streaming live onto YouTube. So you could see us leave... You can see us all come in, and you can see the numbers of people that we all went out and we all came in. There was no one left behind. And then you see this camera on with the mic come off the wall, and it was just craziness. You even see one of the cameras turn around, which was a bit weird. So
it does make me wonder if it's just from its period as a jail, because that was to say 60 odd years, or whether it's going back even further. Because you said about speaking in an old English.
Yes, it was.
Voice. That would have been unusual in the 1800s. That's what makes me think maybe that was 1600s, because that would have been the more almost Shakespearean.
Yes, that's
English.
how I was speaking. I'm glad you said that word Shakespeare, because that's how someone described it.
Yeah.
Because bearing in mind, when I don't like the word come to, but I suppose I did. When I come to, someone said to me, the bit that freaked me out the most wasn't you attacking Lee the cameraman, his name was also Lee, but wasn't you attacking him and throwing such a big man about as if he was nothing. It was the fact that you spoke like you were in a Shakespeare play. And I said, what do you mean? And he said, well, the English was so old, it was like thou and on all this, you know, the way you were
they
speaking.
didn't speak like that in the 1800s, so that's what makes me think maybe it was something that happened there. It's like that's embedded sort of older, further ago than that, when maybe it was used as a pure gallows site. That's
it. I mean, it was at that point that I couldn't believe it. I had to get out of the energy for a little while, as you can imagine. And I got to sit in the office, which is where Elliot sits. Elliot sits there and just monitors the CCTV, a bit like what Lee does at the village.
Yeah.
And there we are in Mr. Roberts again. But
you brought him up.
Yeah. He's got a knack of it, hasn't he?
How many more times do we have to mention his name before you get your tenner?
Well, I reckon I'll have to give him a few mentions before we finish.
Yeah, don't worry. I'll wrap it up with us. So, what do you want to promote before we finish? Don't worry.
No. What you need to say is what do you want to promote for Lee? Oh, God love him. But I went in to sort of speak with Elliot and just get a bit of chill out time.
Yeah.
And he said, perhaps you're going back further. Perhaps,
Yeah, it does sound to me like you were.
He's very much. He's like a male version of you. He's very bubbly. He's very full of laughter, but he's very, very switched on. When it comes to history and things. And he doesn't like to tell anybody because he's one of these that like people to experience and then come to him and he can then confirm it.
Yeah.
And on that note, I will also say as well that anyone who visits Jedburgh Castle Jail, I do hope you get the pleasure of meeting Elliot. He's a lovely little man, and I say little because he's actually smaller than me. But he has a massive portfolio of what he calls paranormal photographs, because when he goes to lock up, just the same as Lee Roberts does at the village, he goes around and locks up at the end of the night, and he takes pictures, and guests take pictures and send him copies through email and stuff, and he keeps it all together. And
I really am sensing a road trip here.
Yeah,
maybe a Hauntings road trip with guest Penny G. Morgan from Haunted Histories, definitely.
I know. As you well know, you're a good friend of ours. I'm sure that can happen.
Definitely. Well, Bear has just said that you're her favourite male Scot.
Well, she's fantastic. I just love the name Bear, and then
it's
with
brilliant,
the
isn't
Medicine
it?
Walker, it's just awesome.
Michael has just asked if Lee is like Beetlejuice, and that you say his name 3 times and he appears.
Yes.
And Richard has said, does he wear the striped suit as well?
Well, it depends which mood you get him in. Because, bearing in mind, this is the man who dressed up as, and rightfully so, a Ghostbuster at the last New Year's shindig that we had here in Mansfield.
That's like a busman's holiday for him.
Yeah, he loves it, him. I tell you, some of the stuff that, when we're doing pre-recorded shows or when we're doing live shows, and, well, hang on a minute, we're talking about Lee Roberts again, but when we do the pre-records or the live shows, the stuff that happens off camera is just unreal. The man, he's just a law unto himself, you know.
Yeah, I've noticed that, having done a few really good fun interviews with him, and he has me in stitches, if I'm completely honest.
He's the Freddie Mercury of the paranormal world.
Oh, don't say that to him.
Oh, yeah, actually, that's just giving him too much credit, isn't it?
I think so. I think so.
He's the,
I can't think of an
Donald Trump of the paranormal world.
Oh no, that's unfair. That's unfair. I'll think of one. I'll think of one and I'll message it to you. So, if someone got the chance to go to Jedburgh, even just during the day, what would you say to them to be aware of?
I would say, like any investigation, well, not even mind investigation, but any paranormal or historical venue that's got a lot of that sort of steeped in history, go with an open mind. Go, be yourself. Don't go there expecting things to happen during the day. Don't go there expecting things to happen at night time. Just go and appreciate and feel. That's the word I want to use. Feel the history of the place. It's unbelievable. And I know, Penny, I know 100%, even without asking you, I know you know what I'm talking about when I say feel the history.
I do indeed.
There is some places you go to that you can smell it almost. It's just, I can't even put it into words. Just experience it, people. Please go and please experience it.
It is like it washes out. Yeah, this is where my family have finally started to realise I'm not bonkers. That when we go to somewhere and if it's quiet, you will find me just sitting there doing nothing. And it is literally just that. I am just soaking up the vibe. I am soaking up what's happened where I'm sitting. I am... Yeah,
a friend of mine who's... I would class her as a medium. I would say she's a medium. She would hate me for saying that. But she knows why I say it, because she's very switched on. And when we used to go on paranormal investigations many, many years ago, I mean, I was with it's not the white noise paranormal that you might be aware of now, but we were called white noise. And we used to go on to locations and she would just sit there. We would walk into a room and she would sit down. Yeah. She wouldn't be your normal investigator. She wouldn't be the investigator that run around screaming, shouting, or playing with equipment. She would just sit and absorb it in. Yeah. And then when you noticed her going into a sort of like that she'd been quiet for too long, you would say, "Erica, are you okay?" You should say, "Absolutely fine. I'm just loving the feel of the energy."
No, that's me.
Yeah, she does it during the day as well.
That's me. Yep, that is me. That is me. And then I start chatting to thin air.
Yeah, well, I chat to thin air anyway. I think I'm just Scottish. It's a natural thing.
Well, we're running out of time. We're running out of time, dude.
That's because I blather. I just waffle. I'm Scottish.
Hey, no. It's. I love it. I love it. I've told you. So, what do you want to promote?
Firstly, I'll give you a very, very 10-second roundup of Jedburgh Castle Jail. I will say to you, people, go and visit the place. It's amazing. It has physical phenomena you wouldn't believe. It's not highly reported like most locations of a similar activity level. But please go. You've heard what me and Penny said about it. You've heard about the energy that we've been talking about. Go and experience it. Can I drop an email? Is that okay?
An email?
An email address for the contact
sure.
details. Please, if you want to go and visit the place, email Elliot. That's ELLIOTT .Lewis. That's .LEWIS @sky.com. Give him an email. Tell him you're interested in doing an investigation there, or want some details, and I'm sure he will forward them to you.
Wonderful. So, what else do you want to promote?
Well, there's this guy called Lee Roberts.
Is there? I've never heard of him.
Yeah, he's just weird. He's this weirdo, you know.
Is he?
He's involved. Yeah,
is he that one that makes them point TV cameras at him all the time?
Yeah,
that one.
He's got a wee bit of a funny attitude where he pushes people into the water or out the way so he can get camera time. But no, on a serious note, I would like to promote obviously the hauntings on Facebook. Yep. So if you want to find out what I'm doing, what Lee's doing, what Pete's doing, go and check us out at the hauntings on Facebook. You can't miss us because you see me in the middle, not Lee, and it's awesome. If you want to check out you're laughing your head off here. But if you want to check out what we're each doing individually, go and check out our pages. My one is easy. It's at official Ryan Griffiths here on Facebook. Lee's one is at official Lee Roberts on Facebook, and Pete Cox is what it says on the tin, at official Pete Cox on Facebook. Go and check us out, what we're doing. We've got loads planned up for Halloween. Obviously, we do the events with Haunted Events UK. I love working with the guys there because it gives a different aspect to the paranormal to what I normally do, because I don't normally work a lot with members of the public, so I love that aspect of it.
And I'll be doing an investigation with you guys on the 2nd of November.
Well, that was actually my next thing I was going to say, yes, so I can't wait for that. Do you know what I mean?
At the village.
Awesome. Yeah, I was going to link that up just nicely there where I was bringing in haunted events.
Sorry.
And of course Penny. See, you're doing a radio version of Lee to me there, weren't you? You're like, I know. Get out of the way, you. It's my time.
I'm a Leo. I like the limelight. What can I say?
But mind you, the difference between you and him is, if it was him, he would have said, "It's my show." No. You know, all joking aside, I've been involved with many paranormal groups. I've got a crazy amount of experience, but I don't want to sit there and paint myself out to be amazing. But what I can say is the group with myself, Lee and Pete is amazing. We just gel so really well. We have fun. We take the piss out of each other, and we be natural. That's the thing. Be natural people with investigations.
And Spirit responds to that as well.
Yeah, they do. Yeah. And the thing is there's no bitching. There's a lot of no disrespect to anybody. I'm not digging anything up or causing any problems. But there's a lot of bitching in the paranormal community, just like there is any community. But we don't have that. Yeah. What we do, say we had a project coming up, we will talk about that. And if one of us is not happy about something, it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, well, let's face it, you lot don't bitch because you say it to each other's faces anyway. So, you know, there's no need to. But thank you so much for your time tonight, Ryan. I've enjoyed it. Do you fancy coming back next year?
Of course I do, Penny. Of course I do.
Awesome. Well, thanks again to Ryan for his time. We're going to make sure we put all he'll let me know what links he wants me to put on the Parasearch page, and if he finds that YouTube video, we'll put that on as well. Thank you ever so much for listening, everyone, tonight. Seeing some names that I don't recognise in the chat room. So thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed Haunted Histories. Don't forget, I'm on every Wednesday, and you can catch my shows on YouTube and Spreaker after the event if you want to listen to any of them. I'm not the only one on Parasearch, obviously. We've got shows on 5 nights of the week. Tomorrow night is Kaz Rooney, a fellow Scots person, not to me, obviously, to Ryan. Her show, Spectral Zone, tomorrow night. And then we have Spirit Dimension on a Sunday with Kerry. We have Supernatural show with Gemma and Joe on a Monday. And also on a Tuesday, we have Paranormal Concept with Paul and Kerry again. So if you're ever at a loss, go and check out our shows, have a listen, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube page. And until next week, I hope to see you again. I'm going to be talking about the Exorcist house next week with Gina from 3 Girls in the Dark, so that should be a good one. But on that note, have a good evening, sleep tight, and don't worry too much about things that go bump in the night.
Thank you for listening. Don't forget to join us for more shows throughout the week. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, and the World Wide Web to keep up to date with all the shows right here on Parasearch Radio.